Welcome to the Delmarva Almanac. Each week we connect you to the best of Delmarva. Now here's naturalist Dave Wilson's conversation with Carrie Kide about invasive plants.
Today we conclude our three-part series on invasive plants in Maryland. In the studio we have Carrie Kide, the invasive plant ecologist with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. She is responsible for invasive plant assessment and control on some 475,000 acres of state lands. She is chair of the Maryland Invasive Plant Advisory Committee. So let's talk about how volunteers can get involved to help monitor the spread of invasive plants.
We have hundreds of volunteers across the state many of whom work for the Natural Heritage Program, who work for all kinds of groups that are out on the land, bicyclists and Sierra Club and the Native Plant Society and people like that. But I am training people who are interested in a program called Statewide Eyes, starting primarily with master naturalists, because those are folks who are already interested in this, to recognize, map, and inventory and map invasive plants on high ecological value pieces of land, primarily state-owned land, but then on to other properties. The benefit of doing this is because I can't be everywhere. I collect through a national database records of invasive plant species in places where there are probably rare things, and then I'm able in a much more strategic way to develop management plans that directly impact the future and existence of some of our rare species. And there are fabulous, fabulous folks out there who are doing this work.
I want to get back to volunteers in a minute, but I want to touch on why this work is so important. I know forest and wetland invasive plants present a huge problem for amphibians by changing soil composition and drying out leaf litter, and likewise for birds who can't adapt to changing ground cover and food types. Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure. I think the person who has done the most to explain this to the general public is Dr. Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware, who's written a fabulous book called Bringing Nature Home. His research, he and his students have, for the last more than a decade, looked at the differences in the suites of insects that exist on native versus exotic plants, not even necessarily invasive plants, but just things from away. Okay, those are primarily things that come in through ornamental horticulture, and we plant in our backyards because they're pretty. He has in the book a wonderful table of species sort of by taxon, by family, and then by genus of the plants that support the greatest number of insects. And the reason that is so important is because, for instance, 90% of our spring birds are feeding their babies insects. And if the insect populations on exotics are not as big as the insect populations on natives, then there's not enough food.
Let's talk about a plant most of us know. Most folks are familiar with the purple flowers and the fragrant smell of kudzu. So why has kudzu become such a problem on Delmarva over the past couple of decades?
This goes back to climate change. Kudzu used to be something that existed only in the South, even though it's been in this country for 150 years. And it was introduced multiple times. We did not used to worry about it in Maryland because it was not perenniating. It died. It now is a perennial plant as far north as Ontario, Canada. So we have kudzu in many places across the state that lives perfectly happily through our winters and spreads like crazy in the following spring.
I want to get back to how folks can get involved. Can you touch on that?
I'm in the process right now of determining the schedule for spring training this year. So most of the statewide eyes trainings will be in state park units, and most of the work that the trainees will do will be in their favorite state parks. On the Delmarva, actually, we'll have a training at Atkins Arboretum, and that one will be in June, so that the people who are trained there can certainly work on the Atkins property. They can work all through Tuckahoe State Park. Once you're trained and you know what you're looking for, you can go anywhere in the state. I am hopeful that people will concentrate on state land. I mean, the trainings are free, and I'm really interested in having them concentrate on state land because that's what helps all of us out.
A good example of a plant folks might be documenting is water hyacinth.
Water hyacinth is a very commonly sold floating pond ornamental. Okay, so it's sold by aquatic nurseries. You can get it online, and people do. Until very recently, we did not believe that it overwintered in Maryland, so we didn't think it was much of a threat. And on our way to this interview, we stopped by a location where Wayne and then Wes have found water hyacinth, and I have a sample of it in the back of the truck, which I'm going to take back with me, and it's got green tissue on it. It's not dead. So it lived through our big storm and incredibly low temperatures, and it's alive. This is really bad news. I think that we are going to see more and more of this as climate change continues. And the things that have been problems in the southeastern part of the United States may become more of a problem for us, which is another reason why early detection and rapid response works well. People on the ground looking out for things that are coming.
We've been talking to Curry Kai, the invasive plant ecologist with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. For more information on the Statewide Eyes program and links on invasive plants in Maryland, visit us at delmarvaalmanac.com/nature.
Well, that's all for this edition of the Delmarva Almanac. Be sure to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and next week join us to learn more about our local culture and get connected to our natural wonders. If you'd like to become an underwriter for this program, visit delmarvaalmanac.com/support. We'd like to thank our community partners, the Friends of Delmarva Public Radio, the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, and underwriters eatdrinkbuyart.com for their help in bringing this program to you, our audience. Our theme music was provided by Brightside Studio. This show has been a Moonshell production. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again, may the rhythms and tides of Delmarva bring you good fortune.